on a technical introduction to recycling of off-grid solar products, with a particular focus on batteries, but also considering the other components and fractions as well. We're really excited to have this seminar today. We've been talking about this for I think since the Nairobi workshop last April. There's been lots of thinking and planning and discussions around how we can come together and work together and package a set of resources that can be of use for Gogla members and the wider industry. And today is the first seminar of the first module, so it's something of a new format for a Gogla project and this working group. And we have 4 fantastic speakers, and there's been lots of interest from our members, so we're looking forward to a lively discussion around it. And I will give a quick introduction and then hand over to Athena, who is the consultant that is working with Gogla on this and bringing her rich expertise. I'm sat here next to Juliana.
Hi everyone.
Who's a new program assistant with Gogla and is helping on this project. A quick introduction to the e-waste toolkit. The objective of this project is to identify good practice for manufacturers and distributors around e-waste management, and we think of it holistically, so around extending product life, around take-back, collection, recycling, refurbishment. And we've envisaged this toolkit with six modules, and we're on the first one today, an introduction to recycling from a technical angle. So as well as identifying good practice, we are also looking to collate resources, and we're thinking of studies, tools, other information that is available and can be on hand to help people with their decision making and their practices. There will also be, for each module, there will be a briefing note and a seminar. This call is what we're calling a seminar, and it's an opportunity to dive into the details of each theme. We will have guest presenters and speakers and an opportunity to discuss. And we will also be building a catalogue of service providers, that's recyclers, e-waste management companies and other organisations that are able to support and provide services to the sector. And we'll have kind of a list of who's there, what they're doing, how you can contact them, and that will be made available through the working group. A bit around housekeeping. So this seminar is being recorded and we will make it available on the e-waste hub, and you can see a mock-up of that hub on the slide here. That will be going live in the next few weeks. We will also have these slides there, and we will circulate these slides after the call today. I would request everyone to keep their microphone on mute to avoid feedback. And if you want to speak, please unmute your microphone. I think there's also a raise hand function if you want to raise a virtual hand and chip in. You can also use the chat box. I see a few people have already putting notes down. You can chat to everyone in the group or pick an individual. Who's who? So another aim of this project and the working group is to build a community of practice around staff in Gogla's membership who are active and interested on e-waste. We feel there's a lot of opportunity for learning, but also for collaboration. And we want to try and build a community of practice through this project. One of the things we've started to do that is compile kind of a one-page bio. We asked people to submit that, and we've put these together in a PowerPoint that again we will circulate after this. There's a selection here. If you haven't done so, please do share with us. Following the format that we will circulate after this. But for now, I'd like to ask, to do a round of introductions. And you can see in the go-to meeting box, there's a list of attendees. So please open that and see where you're placed. And we'll start at the top and go down. And I just ask each person to say the name and the organisation that they're representing. Athena, can we start with you?
I guess with Athena, I'm at the very top. Hello, everyone. I'm Athena, and I'm representing Gogla today, and I will be presenting later. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, you're next on the list.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Wilson, and today I'm working for the International Lead Association, although I also work for Pure Earth, an NGO based in New York, America, of the ELCO Institute, and I'm also currently working with UNEP on their global recycling project for used lead-acid batteries.
A man of many hats. Thank you. Olivier.
Hello, everyone. I'm Olivier Mbera. I'm representing Barossa, Rwanda. I'm the country manager, and I'm happy to be on this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Kosakowski. I'm working for the Mobisol Group. I'm located in Arusha, Tanzania, currently as a product manager, but also coordinating all efforts around the e-waste topic for Mobisol.
Thanks, Peter. Wilson.
Hi, guys. My name is Wilson. I'm representing Delight, currently based in Kenya, and supporting Delight or heading Delight on quality.
Hi, Alan.
My name is Alan. Yes, I'm responsible for OPEX solutions. Because we only design and produce off-grid solar panels, so we can see if we can give our experience to support this group to give some suggestion on how to reuse or recycle the solar panels. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Andy from Omnivoltaic. I'm based in Hong Kong office, and we are off-grid, the whole off-grid solar solutions. Glad to be in the seminar with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bright Chinyemba. I'm representing Phoenix International Zambia, so I'm heading the operations here.
Welcome, Bright. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. That's Charlotte Effer from D-Light.
Hi, Hilary Tello, representing Phoenix International Uganda. I'm the operations director.
Thanks, Hilary. Moving down. Julian.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julian Nangami. I'm presenting Vivos. I'm currently the product associate on the Vivo Orange. Thank you.
Thank you. Kisaki.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. It's Doreen. I work with Solar Now, Uganda, and I'm part of the supply chain team. Thank you.
Thank you. Mathieu.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Matt. I'm representing Easy Solar, a pay-as-you-go company based in Sierra Leone.
Thanks, Matt. There's quite a lot of background noise, so I'll ask you to put yourself on mute again.
Hello, this is Mohamed Yassin, representing Bright Products, based in Oslo. I'm an R&D engineer.
Thanks, Mohamed. Next, Raphael.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Raphael, part of Mobisol. Actually, I'm just in the same project as with Peter. So I work in Kigali, Rwanda, in the operation team. And I'm not directly involved in recycling. I'm just curious and just following Peter, actually. Thank you.
Thanks, Raphael. Shadrach.
Yeah, my name is Shadrach Kenyaga. I represent Azuri Technologies, head of service.
Mm-hmm. And Sunay.
Hi, this is Sunay from Swedfund. I'm joined by my colleague Martina and soon Johanna. Mm-hmm. We are the Swedish DFI. Thanks.
Fantastic. And I neglected to mention, but I'm sure people will have realised the Swedfund logo on the title slide. Swedfund are the funding partner for this e-waste toolkit, and we've been working together to help design and launch this activity. So we're really happy to be working with Swedfund. Sunay, would you care to take the opportunity and say a few words about what's your interest in this toolkit and e-waste generally?
Yes, sure. Thanks for the introduction. So Swedfund is the Swedish DFI, and we are very active in investing in energy sector, specifically renewable energy. And more recently, over the last 1 or 2 years, we have a higher focus in off-grid energy sector as well. So the most recent of our investments have been in Husk Power as well as D-Light. And we are very happy to see that D-Light is already one of the speakers in this webinar. So kudos to that. We are very excited about this project. We hope that this project will be able to bring better e-waste management practices, and not only on paper, but also on ground. And we are also very happy working with Gogla and Athena. I think we are confident on their participation in this entire project, and we hope that all of you will be able to benefit from this project, and also get in touch with Swedfund if you are interested to know more about us.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you, Sunay. Great to be working together. Thomas?
Hi, everybody. I'm Thomas Marinelli. I'm working for Signify. The more famous name is, the former name was Philips Lighting. I work in the field of sustainability for the last 14 years. And currently I'm the head of sustainable design and sustainable products. But in those 14 years, I also worked on e-waste management, particularly on lamps and other lighting equipment. And I'm joining on behalf of Signify. We have a couple of people working in this activity. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. And Veronica.
Hello, everyone. I'm Veronica Di Bella from CDC Group, the UK DFI.
Thanks, Veronica. Good to have you. Vincenzo.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Vincenzo Capogna. I'm the technical director of Hulu Solar. We are a pay-as-you-go solar distributor that operates in 5 countries in West Africa. And I've been following, I think, the e-waste and recycling topic since I was working before for Sunny Money. So this is a very interesting webinar for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren?
Hi, I'm Warren from Azuri Technologies, part of the development team in Cambridge headquarters. So I'm just stepping in for Nigel Preston, who would normally join this. I'm part of his team.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Wouter.
Hi, Drew. Thanks. So I'm Wouter, head of supply chain management at Solar now. Just joined a month and a half, 2 months ago. So still relatively new. So I am here together with Doreen.
Welcome. And I think that's everybody. There's been a lot of demand for this. We've hit the 26 out of 26 attendees that are able to join this go-to meeting, which is fantastic. I'm getting a couple of pop-up messages saying that no more attendees are allowed. I think next time we need to move on to another account that allows more participants. But for the people who can't join, this will be recorded, and they'll have to take a look another time. It also meant that introduction was slightly longer than intended. But anyway, good to see who's here. I can see lots of operations and technical people, which is I think fantastic, given the audience that we were anticipating and how we've designed this webinar. So, with no further ado, let me pass on to Athena. Who I'm sure many of you know, brings fantastic experience from her time working with Phoenix International and providing services to the off-grid solar sector around e-waste management. Athena, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Drew. Hello, everybody. Can everyone see the webcam? I'll get started. The aim of this specific module today, the aim of the module is to give a technical understanding of e-waste recycling, to really look at the engineering. We will discuss first with Olivier from EnviroServe and Brian Wilson from the International Lead Association. And we're going to talk about e-waste from a waste perspective, including batteries, dismantling. And then later on in today's seminar, we'll be speaking with Wilson and Peter, Wilson from D-Light and Peter from Mobisol, about their experiences as off-grid solar companies and how they manage their e-waste. The aim of the seminar today is to really have an engaging discussion and look at an introduction to the topic. This will be accompanied by an extensive briefing note that will include more technical information, as well as links to further documents and contacts. I'd like to kick off our first interview, if everyone is ready. Olivier and Brian, could you please join us?
Hello, Athena.
Hi, Athena, I'm ready.
Great, fantastic. Thank you both. I know we've done a roll call introduction, but Brian, can you tell me a little bit more about what you do? And
well, I primarily work for the International Lead Association, although I said in my introduction, I work for NGOs as well. I know I was, in the introduction, the comment was made that I'm a man of many hats, but I'm actually the same person. It doesn't matter whether I'm working for the Industry Association or NGOs. I'm exactly the same person with the same views and the same outlook. Basically, my job is to work in developing countries and those countries in transition, where their economies are changing, where there are more vehicles on the road, where there are more batteries to be recycled. And my job is to make sure that the batteries, the lead batteries in the world, are recycled in an environmentally sound manner, with good occupational health so that people are not poisoned, and also in a safe manner, which is not always the case. I've worked in every continent of the world except Antarctica.
Thank you very much. Olivier, can you please tell us who you are and what EnviroServe is?
Thank you, Athena. I'm Olivier. I'm the country manager for EnviroServe Rwanda. EnviroServe Rwanda is a subsidiary of EnviroServe, which is an international company. Founded in 2005, so we have 15 years of experience in recycling. We are dedicated to sustainable recycling of electronic waste, but also we do reclaim and recycling of different gases. And we do also specialized waste. So we now have hubs in 14 countries, and our headquarters are in Dubai. So I'm heading the EnviroServe branch in Rwanda, EnviroServe company in Rwanda, and we have one of the modern and environmental friendly facility in Africa. So I think we'll be able to show some photos of our facility and explain more on what we do. Thank you.
Olivier, the dismantling facility in Rwanda that you manage, what fractions do you process and handle?
In our facility in Rwanda, we handle different types of, there are so many types of electronic and electrical waste. So we handle household items, we handle light items, but also handling and recycling some off-grid solar product, kind of like off-grid solar items.
Great. Do you handle batteries?
We do handle, for especially the collection of lead acid batteries and proper handling, but also proper collection and transportation of lithium-ion batteries. We are in the process of setting up lead acid battery recycling, the smelting of lead acid in our facility. But currently we are storing it, collecting and storing, and if possible, send to our facility in Dubai for especially lead acid and lithium batteries. But I think maybe in the next few months we will have our facility ready for lead acid. And it will have a treatment for lithium ion, just for proper packaging. The lithium batteries are potential fire risks, so you have to properly package with sand, with sand layers, so we will have a pre-treatment system for that.
Great. Brian, if I remember, you have one of the many hats you wear is a chemical engineer. Is that correct?
I'm a chemist, yes.
A chemist. My bad. Can you explain to us the difference technically between a lead battery and a lithium battery?
I can, but in terms of the e-waste, which I think is more relevant today, what I would like to focus on is the differences in the chemistries and the recycling capabilities. First of all, can I just say that lithium batteries and lead-acid batteries are not strictly e-waste. The problem is that more and more batteries, lithium-ion and lead-acid batteries, are appearing in e-waste all over the world. Because basically, when people collect e-waste, batteries invariably come with it these days, in one way or another, whether it's a computer, whether it's a solar system. So we are finding that e-waste collectors are more and more often collecting batteries as well. From an e-waste point of view, if you're a user of batteries, or you're a collector of e-waste, or you're a seller or buyer of e-waste, there are some marked differences between lithium batteries and lead-acid batteries. First of all, lead-acid batteries can be recycled. 99% of the content of a lead-acid battery, the plastic, the acid, the lead, whether it's in the grids or whether it's in the oxide or sulfate, can be recycled completely in an environmentally sound manner. The problem with lithium batteries, they certainly have a better energy density than lead-acid batteries, but nobody in the world is recycling them in an economical way. So if you have e-batteries in your e-waste, or if you have lithium batteries in your e-waste, they're more of a liability than they are of an asset, because they have very little resale value, because people can't recycle them and they can't do anything with them. Invariably, what I'm finding around the world is that lead-acid batteries are being recycled, and I know we're going to discuss the method of recycling, which does cause some concern sometimes, but nobody is recycling lithium batteries economically. So the disposing of lithium batteries is becoming a huge problem. What I'm finding is more and more often, and certainly this was confirmed by Mobisol when I was working with them about a year ago, is that more and more lithium batteries are being dumped in either domestic sites or in non-hazardous waste dumps of some description or another. The difficulty here is that sometimes the lithium batteries, once they're used, will become unstable. And they do have a propensity to either start to burn or catch fire in one way or another, to the point where they set fire to other. There is a thought, particularly in some of the European governments now, to actually declare lithium batteries as some form of hazardous waste, simply because there is a propensity to either catch fire or ignite. Now, the other thing that's really, really difficult, and it's something of major concern to lead-acid battery recyclers, if a lithium battery is put in with a lead-acid battery by a waste collector just to add weight, or he doesn't know what to do with the battery, and it goes into a recycling system for lead-acid batteries, it doesn't matter whether the batteries are broken mechanically or by hand, there is a propensity when they're struck to actually explode.
So what I'm hearing is that the major hazard of lithium is fire and explosion of lithium-ion batteries, and the hazard,
They only explode, if you like, when they go into a mix with lead-acid batteries, and then if they're broken open in the presence of other lead-acid batteries, there is propensity to explode. There's over 40 cases recorded in the United States alone, and that's my major concern. That although lithium-ion batteries have got a much better energy density, when it comes to being environmentally sound, until the recycling problem is resolved, then lithium batteries are adding to our environmental concern, not result not solving it.
So what I'm hearing is that segregation is a key part in mitigating the hazards of lithium and lead, and that storage of these batteries in the appropriate manner is essential, which I think, Olivier, you mentioned that EnviroServe do. Can you tell us a little bit more about the safe storage and handling of lithium batteries? What do EnviroServe do to mitigate the risks that Brian just told us?
Thank you very much. As Brian was saying, lithium batteries, they present potential hazard for fire and explosion, and this is due to the fact that sometimes they are not fully discharged, so there's still some energy inside. So for proper handling, when we are collecting or transporting, we have to take some measures. One of the measures is to check that these batteries are fully discharged. If not, we have to cap the positive and negative, and we have to cap it with an insulation, whether plastic or something. But also we use the plastic drums for proper transportation, and we put sand at the top to avoid any, sand is good for control to avoid any fire risk. But also when it's a long transport, you have to put a sand at each layer. You start by you create 3 or 4 layers, and at the top of each layer you add sand. So that's what we are using at the moment. We have specified drums, plastic drums for the transportation and storage. Thank you.
I'm sharing some photos that Olivier sent of his facility. So you've explained to us that with lithium batteries, it's very important to cover the terminals with insulated tape, make sure that they're stored in plastic drums with layers of sand to avoid the thermal discharge that Brian told us can lead to fires, and also that they're segregated from lead batteries so that they don't enter further processing. Brian, as a solar manufacturer, distributor, or third party, if I were to visit Olivier, how can I ensure that that facility or any other facility meets some certain basic health and safety standards, which Olivier's does, as we can see here in these photos, but if I were to visit and compare it to another facility?
Right. First of all, there are rules, if you like, or guidelines for lead-acid batteries, and they're very well documented. The Basel Convention, which provides rules and regulations and protocols for the movement across borders of hazardous waste, also provides you with guidelines for the correct procedures to collect, store, transport and recycle lead-acid batteries. Unfortunately, this is not the case with lithium batteries. I think the procedures that Olivier has described, I would fully commend to everybody. They're very thorough. The problem is that those procedures need to be properly documented and accepted worldwide. What Olivier does is not what I find elsewhere in the world. That's a pity. But once you have a set of guidelines or a set of rules, then you can break them down into sections. You can look at...
Just to clarify, what Olivier does is good practice.
Very good practice.
And you don't find good practice in other facilities.
Yes. And so what you need to do is, is the same as the Basel Conventions, is put out a set of guidelines under headings, battery collection, the procedures, the risks, the mitigating actions to prevent that risk, and document that in terms of safety, in terms of the environment and occupational health. And then you can then produce a procedure, an inspection procedure, to look at the facility, look at the procedures, and then make a decision as to whether they're doing things in the correct manner. this, I say, has been made much easier for us in the lead-acid battery world because we have the Basel Convention technical guidelines which are accepted in over 170 countries. What makes it easy for me is that in the 170 countries in the world, I very rarely indeed go to a country that hasn't ratified the Basel Convention. So even in the absence of any legislation to govern the collection and storage and transport of used lead-acid batteries, if they've ratified the Basel Convention, I already have a set of guidelines. What's difficult with lithium batteries is that there isn't a universal set of guidelines that are accepted in every country, and that makes it very difficult to enforce. But what Olivia said makes very good practice.
It's a very good point, and for our attendees, we'll be discussing regulation in a future module in much more depth and detail, because that's a very long conversation. To go back to these methods that you mentioned, in the ILA you have this benchmarking tool which is used for lead smelting plants. Can you just talk us through that, and just from a lead perspective, what could solar distributors look for when they're visiting their lead recycling partners to ensure that it's meeting some basic criteria?
Okay, that's fine. I'll just summarise today because, as you know, we do have a formal presentation, which perhaps at another module I can go through in more detail. But basically, don't forget the benchmarking tool it's not like ISO 40001. We don't just look at the recycling plant. We take a holistic view, and this is what you need to do with lithium-ion batteries as well. As Olivia described, they look at it from the point where it's collected, where it's transported, where it's stored, and where it's finally shipped to disposal. And it's the same with the benchmarking tool. Basically, what we've done is we've taken best practice and the Basel technical guidelines, and we've ordered them, we've arranged them in a series of modules. So we look at plant safety, we look at occupational health, and we look at environmental management. And then we look at each stage. So as Olivia said, there is a module and a stage for collection. There's a module and a stage for transportation. There's a module and a stage for recycling and final disposal if there is any waste left. And in that, we have a marking system. So they may not be doing exactly what Olivia said, in which case in the first column, they're perhaps just stacking the batteries. But in the final column, as you move upwards and you get better and better, you'll find that they're following the procedures that Olivia set out. That's a very, very quick explanation, Athena, but perhaps that just gives people some idea of how it works. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't need to be used by an expert in the Basel Convention. And I actually helped to write the technical guidelines for the Basel Convention when I was working for them. It can be used by people who are visiting a site, providing they have the sheet in front of them, or on their phone, or on their laptop. They can go through procedures, ask the right questions. Can I see this? Can I see that? What do you do with this? How do you treat that? How do you stack this? So they don't go there as a tourist and not knowing what to do or what to say. They go there with a set of questions and a set of answers. And they're looking for the answers that put them in an environmentally sound box.
Fantastic. For the attendees on the webinar, we'll be having more technical details about the hazards of all the different components in the briefing note. But before we move on, I'd like to ask Olivier, you have very high standards of environmental and safety at your facility. Can you tell us about how what solar waste is from your perspective? What do you do with it in your facility? What does it consist of?
Thank you, Athena. Let me just start by saying that we are interested in the recycling of end-of-life solar products and waste batteries for two main reasons. The first one is handling the hazardous components that we find in the overall solar products. And the second main reason is also that we want to recover the valuable components that we find in this. So maybe to give you a small overview on what maybe the hazardous component that we find. We receive small portable lights. We receive solar house system, we receive lamps, we receive PV modules, we receive batteries, and starting by the small portable lights, the one that we find everywhere. You know, you may find that the light that's used is a fluorescent lamp, and in that case you have mercury inside, so you have to put proper measures for the handling of mercury. You know, it's a hazardous component, and if not properly managed, can cause cancers and so on. But also there are
lights first arrive in your facility. You assess what kind of.
Yes, we first assess, we do segregation, we separate, and we classify depending on the hazardous component and variable materials that we find in it. So I was telling you, we know that for small portable lights, it may be in SFL, it may be red, it may be the lamps, the kind of the lamps that is there. So we classify depending on the hazardous materials that we find. You know, we know so that for small portable lights, most of the plastic that they have is brominated plastic. It's contaminated by brominated. So while separating, we also take care of the plastic. You know, the PV modules, you know, we know that these have aluminum inside, and this is a heavy metals, and Brian will, as a chemist, knows that aluminum is not good for health and environment. But also, you know, treatment of the glass is not easy, so you have to find proper treatment. But also there is some valuable materials on it, like aluminium on the frames and so on. You know, for the batteries, we have already been told there is lead and aluminium inside for which is hazardous. But also, you know, we know that lead has a value on the market, and sometimes in the lithium batteries, you know, it has a negative treatment cost. But if, for example, you find some cobalt inside, you may get some revenues, especially for the lithium batteries for laptops, for mobile phones.
If it's copper cabling or housing those.
Yes, cables. We receive a lot of cables, and you know, we have also to the cables. We strip them and try to remove the valuable materials in it, such as copper, aluminium. It depends on the type of cables. Also,
on cables specifically, Brian, can you tell us what improper recycling of cables looks like? Because
that's a very good example and a way to choose to actually select good practice from bad practice. Obviously, it doesn't feature in lead-acid batteries, but it certainly would in e-waste recycling. From my point of view, when I go to an e-waste recycling plant, the worst practice is when I see cables with either plastic coating, PVC or whatever, it's being burnt in the open with the acrid acid waste smoke coming off just to recover the metal. That would be the worst practice. The best practice would be associated with a cable stripper, where they strip the plastic from the metal, the plastic is recycled and the metal is recycled. That would be best practice. I know they're two extremes, but anything in between that would then move you from either the worst practice to the best practice.
Great. And Olivia, you strip the cables. What do you do with the PVC that's stripped from the cables?
Yeah, the PVC from the cables, we crush it with our plastic crushing machine, into small pellets. And for the moment, we are storing it, but we are discussing with PVC plastic companies here to see if they can use it in the production of PVC cables and so on. They can mix it with virgin materials, but we are still at testing levels, so it's not yet finalized. We're waiting for the solution. It's the same for other plastic from US. It's not easy to get a solution for that. Depending on the type, sometimes that's easy because you have partners locally who can recycle or produce the pallets or other plastic materials such as jerry cans and so on. But other type like PES and so on, it's not easier. So we are exploring different options. But what we do, we just crush them, wash them properly, and plug into small pellets and store it into plastic bags. We have partners in Malaysia and so on who can do the typing of the plastic, but when you analyze the costs of shipping and so on, you find you will be able to pay for the treatment. So we are much investing into finding a local solution, whether construction, whether energy production, and so on. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear. That's really good. I feel like we have only had a chance to scrape at the surface of this topic with both of you. I have one last question before we move to Q&A with our attendees. So please, everyone on the webinar, if you have any questions, please start to put them in the chat box. Now, before I answer attendee questions, Olivier, during our previous discussion, there was something quite interesting we spoke about, and it was how much solar waste you have. What is the percentage of the total e-waste you collect that is solar?
Yes, thank you, Athena. I can say we have collected somehow a big percentage of solar product compared to the studies that have been followed. We are able to collect between 10% to 15% of the total e-waste that we are collecting is solar and solar product. I think we are collecting a lot because there was no solution before. Companies were storing it, and so they have accumulated some stockpiles, and I think that's why we are collecting above the estimated quantities in the study.
Yes, so research has shown that solar accounts for about 3 to 4% of all e-waste. That's the current estimates that exist in East Africa. But you're in fact collecting 15% of your e-waste is solar. I think you also mentioned that's because the off-grid solar industry is taking greater initiative than other industries.
Yes. We have been able to, working with other international organizations such as DFID and EU, we have been able to do the awareness in the solar off-grid companies. So, and there is also regulation that solar companies are complying with. So, I think that's the reason, because we have partnership with most of the solar off-grid companies in Rwanda. So, but also we are not only collecting in Rwanda, we have started to collect in the region, in Uganda, Eastern DRC, and so on. So maybe that's why we have collected a lot of quantities.
There's no risk when they're new, but when they're new, they would always be shipped separately anyway. There are airline restrictions and shipping restrictions already in place globally on new lithium batteries.
If a solar company has a warehouse and they have lithium and lead, are there risks of storing them together?
No.
Okay. And are there risks of storing new lithium or lead batteries? Are they similar to storing used, or is it less risky to store new batteries?
No, there should be no risk to storing new batteries. Olivia described very well indeed the problems with used lithium batteries, the fact that sometimes when they're returned they're not fully discharged. So there should be no risk storing new batteries, but Olivia described very well indeed the risk associated with lithium batteries when they're being stored after they've been used. After they've been used, they should be stored separately. I will add one comment, and that is that lead-acid batteries should never be stored in a completely sealed container, simply because just in case there's any flammable gases, oxygen or hydrogen, that are liberated during the storage process. So although they should be leak-proof, they should have a vent in the top of the case, or they should be open. They shouldn't be completely sealed.
Great. On the subject of batteries, Olivia, I think you alluded to it, but could you tell us what happens to the lithium batteries after you store? Where do you send them and what happens to them?
Yeah, thank you. We have very few recycling companies that can recycle lithium-ion batteries in the world. I think there are no more than 6 recycling companies. So for us, what we do, we ship it to our company, to our headquarters in Dubai, and because we ship it with other materials, because you can't have a full container of lithium batteries in what we are operating. So we don't ship directly to those recycling companies such as Unico and so on. So we ship it to our facility in Dubai, and they combine it with other lithium batteries. And if they have full container, they send it to one of these 5 companies that are able to recycle lithium-ion batteries.
And we have a question also, Olivia, about silica and other materials from solar panels. Can you tell us how you recycle solar panels?
Okay, I was telling you that to separate different plastic, if the lamps will remove the mercury that's inside the plastic, will crush them. If there is any metal, for example, in solar house systems, depending on the metal that's on we also do dismantling. We separate the plastic, we separate the metal platforms.
Do you dismantle solar panels?
Yes, we do. We do dismantle the panels. We remove the aluminum the films, and we retain with the glass. And the glass we ship it to our facility in Dubai. We have a partner who is interested in the recycling of the glass.
But the silica and the wafer are not recycled. What we have not done is put Brian and Olivia's contact on these slides. So if you would like to get in touch with any of our speakers today, please contact Drew, Juliana, or myself, and we can put you in touch with them. Brian, Olivia, thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, we have to move on so that we have time for Peter and Wilson. So thank you both. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to hand it over to Drew now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Athena. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much, Olivier. Because this is a 90-minute seminar, we wanted to have a very short break in the middle in case people want to get a cup of tea or have a quick breath of fresh air. Yeah. We our e-waste consultant has come up with a fantastic joke, a light-hearted moment to to take us through this break. So, did you hear the one about the aluminium recycling plant? The answer is to be revealed in 60 seconds. Athena is now back, so I think we can move on to the second half of this session. But first, did you hear the one about the aluminium recycling plant? It smelt. Yeah, you get it? Cool. We did have a short list of like 3 or 4, and this was the best one. So yeah, I won't tell you the other ones. Cool. With no further ado and no further jokes, Athena, do you want to take us away in the second half?
Yes. So welcome back, everyone. My apologies for the very funny joke. Again, my apologies for that joke. I hope it made some of you laugh. On that note, I would like to welcome Wilson and Peter to turn on their webcams and unmute their microphones and to join us for our second interview.
I can see Peter's still laughing.
Yeah, it was very funny. Wonderful.
We'll do better in the next seminar with our break jokes. Okay, so moving on. By way of introduction, I know you've already briefly introduced yourself. Peter, could you please tell us a little bit about what you do at Mobisol and how you're related to e-waste?
Yes, thanks. I've been working for Mobisol now for the last 4.5 years, and since then I was always very technically involved in like our operations. And eventually we came to the question, how do we handle our waste properly? And so we formed an e-waste kind of committee or working group, and I've been majorly involved in these activities to set up pop-up operations and also finding suitable recycling partners, and also now co-chairing the GoCloud working group.
Thank you, Peter. And what e-waste components does Mobisol have?
I mean, Mobisol is a vertically integrated solar company, so we sell like the entire solar home system. The major components are, of course, the PV panels and lead-acid batteries for our bigger systems, but we also do have lithium batteries in our like smaller solar radio or the torches which are selling, and of course then it continues with the light set from like LED bulbs to like with the cabling, the copper cables, to like the PCBs which are used as a charge controller, or like the appliances which we are selling, so like a TV with the screen, the plastic housing, and the PCB. So it's actually a large range of e-waste to be handled.
The full spectrum of solar e-waste then. Wilson,
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at D-Light and what components of e-waste that D-Light handles?
What I was saying is that from my end, when we started, my main responsibility was on product quality and processes related to product quality. But with time, we started having products coming back, and there was a need to think about processes on how to support on e-waste. So in that connection, with support from the production team, that's because we have another quality team in China, we were able to sit down and define some policy around how we're going to manage our e-waste. And on the e-waste question, I think the items we have or we get on e-waste category are mostly PV, that's photovoltaic panels. We have circuit boards. We also have the lithium iron phosphate batteries, LED bulbs, and copper cables, more like to what we just said.
So a smaller spectrum of components focused around solar lanterns. Is that correct? It's small.
Yeah, I think the bigger business we've done is on portable or smaller lanterns. But from 2015, I think we changed the model to PayGo, where we started dealing with financed home system. And with the home system, I think now we started getting in more waste, especially on the copper cables.
At what stage are you in the e-waste journey?
On the e-waste, probably, I think I'll give an entire explanation to it. And the first thing to mention is that in D-Light, we have two types of market. We have what we call the structured markets, and we also have the partner markets. For the structured markets, these are markets where dealer has full control in terms of operations. And in this market, it's a little bit easier to control or sort of monitor how waste is disposed because we have full visibility. So in brief, what happens is when we have customers with defective products, they return them to the point of sale or the service point, and then we'll have assessment of their diagnosis done at that point, and the defective product can be repaired or sent further down to the recycling chain to dismantling or assorting of the product. We categorize the waste into the different modes. We have what is recyclable or what can be reused, which is reused. What is recyclable is broken separate. What is recyclable includes things like aluminium metal, which is which is used on the PV, and we also have plastics, which are also put separate. On the non-BI or the partner markets is what you do with them is that this is fully managed by the partner. So what Daylight will do is that when the customer has an issue with the products, the customer will return the product to the service point or the sales point, and it will be the responsibility of the partner to service the product. And upon servicing the product, the defective component is what is shared or what is brought back what is brought back to Daylight. So that's
in your non-vertically integrated markets.
Yes, or the partner markets.
Peter, sorry, go ahead, Wilson. Continue.
So upon receiving this, our work is mainly to ensure that the defectives are disposed in the right way, or secondly, we can do the disposal on our own.
Peter, you mentioned that Mobisol is a vertically integrated company. Would you agree with Wilson that it's a lot easier to collect in e-waste being vertically integrated than it would be otherwise?
Yeah, I think so too. Because we have the full overview and insight of our operations, so we can introduce certain guidelines and follow up on them with much more pressure or like force than if you work in a partner market and you don't have dealers insights.
And what do you, where is Mobisol currently in its e-waste journey?
I think we came to a pretty advanced stage where we are definitely comfortable. We have integrated a majority of operations guidelines, which help our team on the ground to properly handle and collect and also do proper refurbishment and repair. And came also to a point of having established partnerships with, for example, EnviroServe, or we have worked with Brian on gaining more knowledge in-house on how to assess factories or recycling plants. But yeah, so some of these are probably implemented, but some of them still need like another push or like challenges come up here and there.
Before I ask you both about how you went ahead to choose your e-waste partners, I want to go back to your internal policies and processes. Peter, you mentioned that Mobisol has both lead and lithium. How do you ensure that when your staff handles e-waste, they can ensure that it's handled safely? For example, making sure that lithium and lead are segregated and not combined or put together.
We launched a waste management policy, so it's more rather the umbrella document. So this is assigned by management and rather a high-level overview. And then with time and like with gathering knowledge on the operations, we have then implemented guidelines on these different storages and have worked, for example, also with the Öko Institute from Germany. There we have then set up a one-pager which explains then the warehouse team, okay, this is how you store properly a lead battery. And also what was mentioned in the first interview today, that the lithium batteries have to be discharged and the connectors be covered so that you avoid any kind of short circuit. All this information we broke down into our internal document management system, and which is then shared with the operations on the ground.
I am now sharing a document. I think this is what you spoke about having a one-pager about how to store components safely. Is this what you mean?
Exactly. So we also got recently ISO 9001 and 40001 certified. So their document management is a major part of the certification, and within that, and on the e-waste, yes, we have produced this kind of documentation. So here we call this a one-point lesson because it can then be reminding the warehouse staff and those who are handling it, or being in a folder with various other files which are needed for the operations.
Great, thank you. Before we move on to Wilson, so what I hear, Peter, is that the e-waste policies internally were top-down. You started with a general strategic view on e-waste, and then that filtered down into practical one-pagers that can be used by your staff. Wilson, you've also mentioned that D-Light has quite stringent internal policies on the environmental and safety standards of handling its waste. Can you talk us a little bit through about how those internal policies work and how they compare to your required compliance in different markets?
Okay, thank you, Athena, for that. One thing on the policy is on how long do we hold the waste, because I can tell you we have no proper, I would call them controlled environment, so we can have this waste kept. So part of our policy is we push for 3 months disposal. So we don't want to keep waste for more than 3 months. Point number one. Point number two is on how we manage the vendors, because as probably on the next point is on the challenges we experience when it comes to sourcing for the vendors. So once we identify the vendor, we have to sign a non-disclosure because we want to secure innovation. And then point number two is on the element of collection. So I'll give an example of Kenya where we have a smooth, seamless process. We will collect the products from the field. That's both EOL and defective products. We'll take you through the process that I mentioned before. And then we'll have the vendor come collect the items before 3 months are over. So we don't have so many operations on the ground because, again, as I said, our products are very small, so we don't have so much operations on the ground. And that's basically what we use the process for, ensuring the items are collected at the right time, they're dismantled, and finally they are given to the right person. That's purely what the policy is all about.
Can you tell me how you chose the e-waste recycler that you're currently using? Okay,
what you've done, we have whenever you're sourcing for any vendor for the business, you have to follow the channel of the procurement channel. And what the procurement team will do is they will advertise for the opening. So once the advertisement is floated and the interested vendor has delivered the documents, we will assess the documents because there's a couple of requirements to share when you're doing the advertisement. One, we want a company that is certified by the National Environmental Management Authority. We want a company that is operating in the country with all the legit documents. And then we also want a company that is going to give us a certificate of conformity or certificate indicating that it acknowledges we've disposed our e-waste in the right condition. So when we have a company that meets all these requirements, we'll now move on to the second level, which is more of commercials. So we will also assess how much does it cost the business to do the disposal. And then once we get the commercials, we now sign the contract with the company. And from there now the other process comes in.
Thank you. Peter, can you tell us how Mobisol chooses its e-waste partners?
It's quite similar. So we also have a higher standard on like the local partners have the right certificates and the right partner to be chosen. And majorly we're also looking at, of course, the environmental standard. So that's an intrinsic, but also like an external factor by our investors, for example, that the e-waste needs to be handled in an environmentally sound manner.
We're coming to the end, so last couple questions from me before we open up the floor to our attendees. So attendees, please start putting your questions questions into the chat box. Can you both tell me what your biggest challenge is with e-waste? Let's start with Wilson.
I think I have a list of challenges that we have, especially for D-Lights. And one of them is that there are very few specialist recycling organizations in the countries we operate in. And then secondly, we also have, there's a limited demand for the components of e-waste. So even if you dismantle the products, there's very little you can do with, let's say, the plastic and things like that. Thirdly is on many of our systems are sold to third parties, and we do not have the reverse logistics capability to ensure that e-waste is handled responsibly. Fourthly is on the advocacy, and this is more to the customers, trying to educate our customers, making them to understand that when the product gets to end of life, they can be able to return the product for proper disposal. The other one is on communication between the customer and the company in ensuring that they understand at what point does the company come in to support on end of life. Thirdly is on finally is on logistics, and this is a commercial that affects. It's a commercial element that affects most of our customers, where customers find it being more of a challenge to bring back the product because of the logistics barrier. I think those are the key challenges I have from my end.
That's a fantastic summary, Wilson. Lack of proper vendors, awareness in customers, the low intrinsic value of solar products. Peter, what are Mobicel's challenges with e-waste? I imagine some of the same.
I'm not sure I can add anything to that list. It's bad, that was a very comprehensive challenge list, and I definitely can feel the pain. I think one of our major pains at the moment is to find a suitable partner, recycling partner of lead-acid batteries in one of our operating countries, because there are local challenges to transport lead batteries from one country to the other country. In this case, it would be Tanzania to Kenya, just to be a bit more particular. Even so, we have the documentation, which I was mentioning, in-house. It's still a challenge to continuously keep the staff aware about hazardous effects and keep training them and get it in the mindset of the operations.
Continuous training and awareness internally and to make sure that everything's there. And I think that's a relatively lower hanging fruit than things like advocacy and customer awareness, but still a challenge nonetheless. Before I move on, I still haven't received any questions from the audience. Can you both tell me something positive about e-waste? So Peter, I'd like to start with you.
Positive, good question. I mean, waste is always seen as something negative because, especially e-waste can be hazardous. And I think what's positive, or how I see positive things right now, is that we come here together. So waste in general is becoming more a global topic and gets more recognition that it needs to be handled well, that we have a global issue here. And I think it's fantastic that here at least more than 20 people come together from across the solar industry and trying to solve that, at least for our industry, and work together and learn from each other. So that's definitely my positive takeaway.
Thank you. Wilson, can you tell me something positive about e-waste?
I think on my side there are only 2 points. And the first point is that one, it helps safeguard the environment for future generations to come. And then secondly, I look at e-waste as a meeting point between the customer and the solar companies, in the sense that that's the point where we as the manufacturers are able to meet our customers, having enjoyed the lights and the power and the energy from the solar coming in after the entire life of the product.
I really like both of your points. The fact that e-waste is a meeting point between the company and the customer, and Peter, what you mentioned about how it's bringing people together to work on a positive action. I think those are fantastic points. I'm going to switch to questions. We're almost done, so please own panelists. We have a really great question. Wilson, I'm going to direct it at you. It's about solar manufacturers who don't have an in-country entity, but they rather work through distributors. How can they ensure that their products that they manufacture are being collected and recycled? So, for instance, in your partner markets, not in your VI markets.
Thank you for the question. I think on that question, I would look at it more like to what we do. I know it's a challenge to bring back the product, but I think most products should come in with warranty. What warranty does, it cushions the consumer in some way. And if a product is able to serve way and beyond the warranty period, the only challenge would be returning it at end of life. So it means if the product fails, then the consumer will now have the thrill to bring back the products to the trader or to the partner who will finally bring back the same product to the manufacturer. Without that, I think there's no follow-up. We don't know what the customers are going through. We don't know whether the products are working. And what we'll be doing in that order or in that connection is we will just be building up on electronic waste in the field or in trade.
On that note, if you were to give a ballpark figure, how much of your product do you think is actually coming back at the moment?
I can tell you, different products behave differently. There are products that are still on the development curve. There are products that are mature. There are products that have come to maturity. So products that have come to maturity, we get, and this being very sincere, we get less than 1%.
Okay.
Yeah, we get less than 1%.
Do you think that you can increase that number through customer awareness and warranty, or does it need external action like regulation or government enforcement?
Okay, and then maybe just to make it clear, what you get back is defective.
Yeah.
End of life, that's defective. End of life, what happens is when a product stops working at end of life and the customer has gotten good service from the product, they will come back requesting on, is there anything we could do on this product? Mm-hmm. What we do from my end is we give good discounts on new models. So what the customer will do is, will say, for example, the cost of repairing this product is like $2. The cost of getting a new one is $4. In a way, we try, when products are at end of life, we try giving very competitive prices to our customers to motivate them or to encourage them to get new ones and leave the old ones. Mm-hmm. And in the process now, we are able to pull them back.
So what I'm hearing is that this 1% of products returned is not just an e-waste question. It's also a question of the fact that it might be a very good, it is a good product and your customers are continuing to use it. So not all of those products in the field may have reached the end of their life. Of the ones that have reached the end of their life, those are coming back through discounts on new products.
Yes, yes.
Peter, what about Mobisol? How much of your products are you getting back? And is that, are they all end of life, or is that because they're still being used? What's the
I was actually listening to Wilson and kept nodding. Like what Wilson was saying is it's very much also the Mobisol story. I think for the mature products, we're having like the within warranty return is below the 1% mark. And of course, it depends if it's a panel, which is a very stable product, versus maybe a charge controller, which has a lot of electronic components, which could fail. But in the bottom line is below 1%, and it depends then, of course, also on the maturity of the product.
Okay, unfortunately, our time is up. We have a lot of other questions, such as to Peter, how you launched the e-waste policy internally, and I think you have a very interesting story there. To our attendees, we have written up both Peter and Wilson's stories and experiences, and those will be included in the briefing note. We'll together the questions and see if we can include those in the briefing note. Peter, Wilson, thank you both for your time. This was really great, and I'm sorry to say we didn't have more time to speak. I'm now going to ask you to turn off your microphones and webcams and hand it back over to Drew.
Thanks, Athena.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, Wilson, and thank you, Athena. That was fantastic, really interesting. So I just have a couple of slides to wrap up. Don't worry, don't hang up, I don't have more jokes. Next steps for the toolkit. So as we said at the start, this module, the outputs will be the seminar, which is what we've had today, and also a briefing note, which is more of a technical introduction to off-grid solar products when they reach their end of life or are defective. So, what are the components? What are the hazards, and how can companies start to think about recycling that? It will include some of the tools and resources and studies that we've found, such as the one-pager which Peter had mentioned, and the ILA benchmarking tool which Brian spoke about. And we will be releasing that briefing note on March the 7th, and that will sit on the Gogla e-waste hub, which is on our website. We will also put out the catalogue of service providers, which will at least be the template and have the initial content for that. And so, think of the EnviroServe and Brian Wilson and the consultants of the world that we've come across that may be of use and assistance to you and your company as you think about moving forward with e-waste operations. We're also going to get started with Module 2. We'll follow a similar process where we put together an overview which includes the scope and content of the module, and ask you for your feedback and priorities. And thank you for everybody to provided feedback on Module 1. It was really influential in determining how we designed this seminar, but also the content for the briefing notes. So I'd ask you to provide your inputs on that as well when it's sent around in a couple of weeks' time. And then finally, just another reminder about the Solar E-Waste Challenge, which is $1 million in grant funding, which there will be a call for proposals open March 7th to May 19th. And that's an opportunity for grant funding for both recycling and e-waste management companies and off-grid solar companies. And it's to promote pilots and scale innovations that enhance repair, refurbishment, collection and recycling of products. It's being led by CLASP, and Gogla are a minor partner in that. But yeah, it's a fairly narrow application window, so I'd encourage you to start having a think about project ideas. A project will be the grant amount is between $50 and $200,000, and there will be 12 months to spend the funding when the awardees are announced in June. If you're looking for more information, hold on till it's launched, or email Sam Grant. But otherwise, just a final thank you to our speakers, to Athena for moderating, and to all of you for attending and asking questions. We would appreciate your feedback on this seminar. If anybody has any suggestions, recommendations, ideas for future, please let us know. But otherwise, the time is up. So thank you, everybody, and have a nice day.